The mysterious arrival. The night sky above Alaska was calm and clear. Stars twinkled like tiny lanterns in the darkness. Jack Carter, a former military survivalist, sat on his cabin's porch, sipping a cup of hot coffee. It was supposed to be a peaceful night. Then, it happened. A blazing streak of fire tore through the sky, moving at impossible speed. Jack's eyes widened as the object crashed deep into the forest with a thunderous explosion. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Birds flew away in panic. A distant glow flickered from beyond the trees, and thick smoke rose into the air. Jack put down his cup and grabbed his rifle. He had lived in these woods for years, but nothing like this had ever happened before. He wasn't the only one who noticed. His radio crackled to life with a voice filled with confusion. Did anyone else see that? Something just crashed near Silver Lake. Jack recognized the voice. It was Sarah, a local pilot who lived nearby. "Yeah, I saw it," Jack replied. "I'm heading there now." He grabbed his flashlight, strapped on his gear, and set off into the forest. A strange discovery. As Jack moved through the dense woods, he could smell something metallic and burned in the air. The closer he got, the stronger the heat became. Then he saw it. A massive metallic structure lay broken in the middle of a clearing. It was shaped like a sleek black triangle, its surface glowing faintly with blue alien symbols. The impact had left a deep crater, and shattered trees surrounded the site. This was no ordinary aircraft. Jack crouched behind a fallen log, scanning the wreckage. Suddenly, movement caught his eye. From the burning ship, figures emerged. They were tall, with dark blue skin, wearing strange armored suits. Their eyes glowed dimly in the darkness. They moved quickly, some limping, others carrying weapons that looked far too advanced for human technology. Jack's heart pounded. Aliens. The thought sent a chill down his spine. He had seen war. He had faced enemies before. But nothing prepared him for this. Desperation in the darkness. The aliens gathered near the wreckage, speaking in a strange, clicking language. One of them, taller than the rest, pointed toward the ship's core, a bright, pulsing orb of energy still flickering inside the damaged vessel. They were trying to fix it. Jack understood immediately. They weren't here to invade. They were stranded. One of the aliens, a smaller figure with lighter skin, collapsed onto the ground, clutching its side. Another knelt beside them, placing a glowing device over the wound. They were injured. They were desperate. Jack wasn't sure what to do. Should he help? Should he run? Before he could decide, something else happened. The distant hum of approaching helicopters filled the air. Jack looked up. The U.S. military had arrived. Trapped on Earth. Spotlights pierced through the trees as black military helicopters hovered over the crash site. Soldiers in dark gear descended from ropes, their weapons trained on the aliens. A booming voice echoed from a loudspeaker. "This is the United States military. Drop your weapons and surrender." The aliens turned toward the soldiers, their glowing eyes filled with fear. The tall alien leader raised a hand in warning, but one of the younger aliens panicked. A sudden flash of blue energy burst from an alien weapon. Gunfire erupted in response. Jack ducked behind a tree as bullets and energy blasts lit up the night. The aliens fought back, but they were weak, injured, and outnumbered. One by one, they fell, captured or killed. The leader, still alive, turned toward the ship. He pressed something on his wrist. A distress beacon activated. A deep, eerie hum filled the air. Jack's stomach twisted. Who was he calling? And more importantly, would they come? The signal that changed everything. The eerie hum of the distress beacon vibrated through the cold night air. It wasn't loud, but Jack felt it deep in his chest, like standing too close to a power generator. The alien leader stood still, his glowing wrist device pulsing with an unknown energy. He was hurt, cornered, and desperate. His dark blue eyes flickered between the wreckage, the captured soldiers, and the sky above. Jack clenched his jaw. Who was coming? The military wasn't waiting to find out. "Shut it down," a soldier barked. Dozens of guns locked onto the alien. The leader hesitated for just a second too long. Bang! A single rifle shot echoed through the forest. The alien collapsed to the ground. His wrist device flickered, the pulsing signal growing stronger instead of stopping. Jack's gut twisted. That was a mistake. A huge shockwave burst from the device, knocking everyone back. Trees groaned as their trunks snapped. Soldiers hit the ground hard. The air smelled of burned ozone. The beacon had gone from a distress signal to something else. Something dangerous. Then the sky changed. Something's coming. High above, the stars shifted like ripples on a lake. Jack had spent years staring at the night sky, but he had never seen space move before. A section of the sky darkened, bending unnaturally, like a curtain being pulled aside. Then, a massive shape appeared. It was silent, moving with an eerie smoothness. It didn't arrive. It had been there, hidden, waiting. Jack's breath caught in his throat. What the hell is that? The military had noticed it too. Radio chatter erupted in panic. "Command, we have an unknown craft, bigger than anything we've seen." "Is that a cloaking field? We need immediate air support." But nothing was fast enough to prepare them for what happened next. Retribution from the stars. A deep vibrational hum rumbled through the air. The massive ship's hull shifted. What looked like smooth metal suddenly split open, revealing something alive, something watching. And then, a beam of pure white energy slammed into the earth. The shockwave sent trees flying like matchsticks. Soldiers vanished in an instant, turned into nothing but burned shadows on the ground. The wreckage of the alien ship disintegrated, its remaining parts lifted into the air and pulled back toward the massive ship. Jack barely managed to dive into a trench before the force of the blast rolled over him. The heat burned the air from his lungs. For a terrifying moment, he thought he was dead. Then, silence. When Jack lifted his head, the clearing was gone. The land was now a deep crater, still glowing with residual energy. The military forces were wiped out. The alien leader, gone. The wreckage, gone. But the massive ship remained, watching, waiting. Jack's instincts screamed at him to run, but he couldn't, because something was coming down from the ship. A smaller craft descended from the giant vessel. It wasn't sleek or elegant. It was brutal-looking, like a prison transport. The doors hissed open, revealing something worse than the first aliens. Jack's blood ran cold. These new arrivals weren't stranded travelers. They were hunters, and they were here to clean up the mess. The hunters arrive. Jack's breath was shallow as he pressed his body into the dirt. His ears rang from the explosion. His fingers dug into the earth, but the ground still trembled beneath him. The sky was no longer still. The massive alien ship loomed above like a silent predator, its dark metal shifting like a living thing. And descending from it, a smaller craft cut through the smoke, a brutal, armored vessel, built not for exploration, but for war. Jack knew instantly. These weren't rescuers. These were the real threat. No one left to fight. The military was gone. The explosion had wiped out most of the soldiers. The ones that remained were either injured or unconscious. Radios crackled with static and panicked voices. "Command, come in. The base is gone. We need reinforcements." No response. Jack looked around. He saw a handful of survivors, a medic struggling to wake an officer, a soldier barely standing, clutching a shattered rifle. It wasn't enough. And then, a metallic screech filled the air as the alien warship's ramp slammed down, revealing something worse than Jack had imagined. The hunters revealed themselves. They weren't like the first aliens. The ones before had been humanoid, desperate, afraid. These new arrivals were taller, heavier, armored in strange exoskeleton suits that bent and shifted with unnatural fluidity. Their faces were hidden behind black visors, Their bodies moved with military precision. And they were armed. Weapons unlike anything Jack had ever seen, sleek, pulsing with eerie red energy, hung from their hands, humming with restrained power. The leader stepped forward, his voice distorted and mechanical, yet somehow amused. Primitive resistance detected. Jack's stomach twisted. The hunter turned its head slightly, scanning the carnage, and then raised a small silver device. A voice echoed from it, a voice Jack recognized. "Do not let them take the ship, whatever it takes." Jack's eyes widened. It was the alien leader from before, the one who had sent the distress signal. He was still alive. Somewhere out there, he was watching. The countdown begins. The hunter leader tilted his head, considering the message. Then he crushed the silver device under his boot. Irrelevant. A high-pitched beeping sound suddenly filled the air. Jack turned toward the crater. The remains of the crashed ship were glowing. The broken pieces, the shattered metal. It was all pulsing with energy. Self-destruct. The first aliens had set a trap. The ship wasn't just wreckage, it was a bomb. Jack lunged for cover just as the hunters finally reacted. Too late. A second explosion erupted, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The hunters were fast. Several of them activated energy shields, blocking the worst of the blast. But one thing was clear. They weren't invincible. Jack's mind raced. The first aliens had feared these hunters, but they had also known how to fight them. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was learning how to win. The Hidden Alliance. The air shimmered with heat, and the dust hadn't even settled from the explosion when Jack scrambled to his feet. His ears rang, his mind raced, but one thought cut through the chaos. The hunters weren't invincible. One of them lay motionless, its armor cracked open by the blast. A faint red glow pulsed from within, flickering erratically. The others were regrouping, forming a defensive perimeter, their weapons scanning for threats. Jack didn't wait. He sprinted toward the wreckage, his boots kicking up debris. If he was right, if the first aliens were still watching, he needed to find them before the hunters did. Then, a hand grabbed his arm, pulling him back into the shadows. Jack spun around, fists raised, and found himself face to face with an alien, but not one of the hunters. This one was different. The survivor. Jack froze. The alien was badly injured, its dark suit torn, exposing pale, almost translucent skin. Its large black eyes watched him closely, filled with something Jack hadn't expected. Desperation. The alien clutched a small blinking device, pressing it into Jack's hand. Its voice was weak, but clear. "You must listen." Jack hesitated, his fingers closing around the device. They will not stop. The ship was only a distraction. The alien's breath was ragged, its gaze flicking toward the hunters. They are here for something more. If they take it, your world is lost. Jack's heart pounded. What are they looking for? The alien's lips curled slightly, almost like a human smile. Not what. Who? Jack felt his stomach drop. There are more of you. The alien didn't answer. It only pushed the device deeper into Jack's palm, its fingers trembling. Find us before they do. And then, the shadows moved. The hunters strike. A red light flashed in the darkness. Jack barely had time to throw himself down before an energy blast sliced through the air, hitting the alien square in the chest. The creature staggered back, eyes wide in shock, then collapsed. Jack bit back a curse and rolled behind a pile of debris. The hunters were moving in fast, their weapons glowing. The air filled with the whine of charging energy rifles. Survivor detected. Their leader's voice was calm, mechanical, merciless. Jack gritted his teeth. He didn't know what was on this device, but the alien had trusted him with it, and he sure as hell wasn't about to let it fall into their hands. With one deep breath, Jack did the only thing he could. He ran. The chase begins. Jack bolted across the battlefield, zigzagging between wreckage and fallen bodies. Blasts of red energy scorched the ground inches from his feet. His lungs burned. His muscles screamed. The hunters weren't just fast. They were calculating. They didn't fire wildly. Every shot was measured, precise, meant to corner him. Jack's mind worked just as fast. He had one advantage they didn't: instinct. He reached a half-destroyed military jeep, yanked open the door, and dove inside. Bullets wouldn't work against them, but maybe. He grabbed the flare gun from the glove compartment. A crazy idea formed in his mind. His fingers wrapped around the trigger. The hunters were almost on him. Jack turned, took dead aim, and fired. A fire in the dark. The flare shot into the air, bursting into a blinding red glow. For a split second, the battlefield was bathed in light. And that's when Jack saw them. More figures, watching from the tree line. Not hunters, not soldiers, survivors. Jack's pulse spiked. The first aliens hadn't just been running. They had been hiding. And now, they knew. Jack was on their side. The hunters, however, didn't have time to react. The sudden flare disoriented their sensors, buying Jack just enough time to dive into the shadows. The chase wasn't over. But now, Jack had a chance. He had a message. And somewhere in the dark, he had allies. The lost ones. Jack ran. The flare's glow faded behind him, swallowed by the night. But he didn't stop. His muscles burned, his breath came in ragged gasps, and the device the alien had given him felt like a ticking bomb in his grip. The hunters were fast, but Jack knew the terrain. He darted through the wreckage, leaping over twisted metal and scorched earth. Each step echoed with the weight of the moment. He was carrying something valuable, something the hunters would kill to retrieve. And someone, somewhere, was waiting for him. The alien survivors. They had seen his signal. Now he just had to live long enough to find them. The forest of echoes. Jack plunged into the dense tree line, branches slashing at his arms and face. The forest was silent, unnervingly so. No chirping insects, no rustling leaves, just his own heartbeat hammering in his ears. Then, a sound behind him, a low mechanical hum. Jack turned his head just in time to see a hunter emerging from the wreckage, its red visor glowing through the trees. It raised its weapon. Jack threw himself to the side as a beam of energy sliced through the tree beside him, sending splinters flying. He hit the ground hard, rolling through the dirt. Damn it. No time to think. He had to keep moving. Then, a whisper. Not words, not a voice. Something brushed against his mind, like a thought that wasn't his own. This way. Jack froze. Had he imagined it? Hurry, before they lock on. The voice was inside his head, and it wasn't human. The hidden refuge. Jack didn't question it. He pushed himself up and ran in the direction the voice guided him. The ground sloped downward, the trees closing in, swallowing him into total darkness. Then, a shimmer. The air rippled like heat waves over asphalt. Jack slowed, reaching out cautiously. His fingers touched nothing, but he felt it. A presence, an unseen barrier. Step through. Jack clenched his jaw, then took a leap of faith. The world shifted. Suddenly, the forest was gone, or rather, he was somewhere else within it. The temperature dropped. The air smelled different. And in front of him, standing in a circle of dim blue lights, were three figures. The alien survivors. The truth revealed. They were taller than Jack, their skin pale and luminescent, with deep-set, obsidian black eyes. Their suits were damaged, but their posture was strong, unafraid. One of them, a female, if Jack had to guess, stepped forward. "You carry the key." Jack looked down at the blinking device in his hand. "This? What is it?" The alien studied him, then touched her own temple. And suddenly, Jack saw, not with his eyes, but with his mind. Flashes of images, a planet, burning. Their home invaded. The hunters, not just soldiers, but exterminators. A mission to Earth, a desperate escape. And then, the realization. The hunters hadn't come for the ship. They had come for them. The last stand begins. Jack staggered back, his mind reeling. "If they take us," the female alien said, her voice calm but firm, "they will learn everything about your world." Jack clenched his fists. "So what do we do?" The alien's black eyes narrowed. "We fight." A distant explosion shook the ground. The hunters were still searching, closing in. Jack tightened his grip on the device. No more running. It was time to turn the tables. The hunter's trap. A low rumble shook the ground, sending dust and loose pebbles skittering across the hidden chamber's floor. Jack's grip on the alien device tightened. The hunters were close, too close. The three alien survivors exchanged a glance, their luminous eyes flashing with silent communication. Then the female, the one who had connected with Jack's mind, stepped forward. "They will not stop." Jack nodded. "Then we don't run." The male alien beside her, taller and more battle-scarred, tilted his head. "Your kind fights, even when escape is possible." Jack smirked. "You have no idea." The ground shook again. This time, a metallic screech echoed through the forest above. The hunters were deploying something new, and Jack had the sinking feeling that this wasn't just a search mission anymore. This was a cleansing operation. The unseen battlefield. "We have a plan," the female said, touching the device in Jack's hand. "This is a key, not just to our ship, but to a weapon they fear." Jack's eyes narrowed. "A weapon? Where?" "Still hidden. But the key will wake it." The taller alien turned to a section of the cavern's wall, pressing a hand against its smooth surface. A faint hiss, and suddenly, a panel slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel leading downward. "This way." Jack hesitated. He wasn't one to blindly follow, but at this point, the only way out was through. With a final glance toward the rumbling ceiling, he stepped forward. The hunters closed in. As they moved deeper, the walls became less natural, more metallic, a sign that this place wasn't just a random hideout. It was part of something older. Then, a sudden chirping sound from behind them. Jack froze. The aliens stopped too. The taller male raised his hand, his fingers glowing faintly. "Do not move," he whispered. Jack's instincts screamed at him to look. Slowly, he turned his head and saw it. A small drone hovering in the entrance of the tunnel, scanning, watching. For a second, it did nothing, just hung there, its red eye flickering. Then, beep, beep, beep. The alarm sliced through the silence like a knife. "Run," the female alien shouted. Jack bolted. The underground vault. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber, filled with tall, ancient structures, almost like an abandoned city, buried deep beneath the earth. In the center, resting on a raised platform, was something Jack couldn't quite believe. A ship. Not a small fighter, not a scout vessel. A warship, and it looked alive. The alien survivors rushed forward, their hands moving over glowing panels as they activated the dormant systems. "This is our last chance," the female said, her voice urgent. "If they reach us before we launch." Boom. The tunnel behind them exploded, sending a shockwave of fire and debris through the chamber. Jack stumbled forward, coughing as dust and heat filled the air. He could hear them. The hunters were here. Footsteps. Metal clanking. A dark silhouette stepped through the smoke. Jack froze. The hunter leader, towering, armored, its visor glowing with burning red light. It raised its weapon. "Surrender the key." Jack looked down at the blinking device in his hand. The alien warship hummed to life. A slow smile spread across his face. "Come and take it." Humanity's gambit. The warship hummed, not like a machine, but like something alive, awakening after centuries of slumber. Jack barely had time to take it in before the hunter leader moved. Boom! A plasma shot sizzled past his face, slamming into the metallic walls of the chamber. Sparks rained down, casting eerie shadows over the alien warship's hull. The female alien lunged forward, slamming her hand onto the ship's interface. "It's not ready," she shouted. Jack gritted his teeth. They didn't have time to wait. The last stand. The hunter leader strode forward, its weapon pulsing with energy. "Human," it growled. "You are outnumbered, outmatched. Surrender the key." Jack glanced at the aliens. They were afraid. He couldn't blame them. The hunters weren't just soldiers. They were executioners. He turned back, gripping the alien device tight in his hand. Then he smirked. "You ever heard of a bluff?" The hunter leader paused. Too late. Jack slammed the key into the ship's control panel. A low rumble spread through the chamber. Lights flared to life along the warship's hull. Engines whirred, weapon systems powered up. The hunter leader took a step back. "Impossible." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, welcome to Earth." And then, all hell broke loose. The awakening of a Titan. The warship lifted from the platform, ancient thrusters roaring to life. Panels slid open, revealing rows of hidden weaponry, energy cannons, missile launchers, things Jack didn't even recognize. The hunter soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the air, but the ship's shields absorbed them effortlessly. Jack turned to the two aliens. "You can fly this thing, right?" The male alien hesitated. "We will try." Jack shook his head. "Not good enough. Try harder." The hunters were retreating now, scrambling for cover. They knew what was coming. Jack grabbed a loose rifle from the ground and fired back, covering the aliens as they rushed to the cockpit. Then, the warship's main cannon rotated, locking onto the tunnel entrance where the hunters had entered. Jack barely had time to dive behind cover before. Boo-oh-oh-oh-um. A blinding blast of energy tore through the tunnel, vaporizing everything in its path. Shockwaves rippled outward, sending debris flying. When the smoke cleared, the hunters were gone. The great escape. "We have full control," the female alien shouted. The ship tilted, its engines glowing bright as it prepared for launch. Jack ran for the open hatch, gripping the ledge as the ship lifted off. He barely had time to pull himself inside before the thrusters blasted forward, sending them soaring through the underground tunnels. Behind them, the entire chamber collapsed, sealing off the ancient vault forever. Jack let out a breathless laugh. They had done it. They had stolen a warship. And now it was time to show the galaxy what humanity was made of. Epilogue. The hunt has just begun. The alien warship breached the Earth's atmosphere, disappearing into the depths of space. But the war wasn't over. The hunters would come again. Jack knew that. But this time, they wouldn't just be hunting. This time, humanity would be waiting.